and Byron Lazine. I'm Tom Toole. Just shut up, Lisa. Let's go. If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market news, industry trends, the conditions of your local market, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine. I'm Tom Toole. Just shut up, Lisa. Let's go. Let's keep going. This is a rough day here.
Good thing people know my name already.
Lazine. Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, you're thinking of your Philadelphia Eagles there.
The Eagles, yes, that's what's happening. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti and Byron Lazine, coming in remote with a beautiful suite in Austin. I don't know where you're coming in from, but it seems like you're in a finished basement right now. And we've got a lot of news here, you two. President Trump nominated Kevin Warsh for the Federal Reserve Chair today to succeed Jerome Powell. The announcement's coming soon. We saw the Federal Reserve hold steady on the federal funds rate this past week. Rocket companies got slapped with a class action lawsuit, and CoStar and Homes.com, I mean, they're under fire here. There's been a third-point attack we're going to talk about. So a lot of great stuff here to chat about. But let's start with the Federal Reserve Chair. So news dropped today. It was at 6:52 this morning that President Trump named Kevin Warsh to succeed Jerome Powell as the Federal Reserve Chair. And this was a long time coming. There's been a lot of talk of nominees. President Trump said, I've known Kevin for a long period of time and have no doubt that he will go down as one of the great Fed chairmen, maybe the best, that he posted on Truth Social. And to give some background here on who Kevin Warsh is, and then I want everyone's reaction. So he served as a member of the Federal Board of Governors from 2006 to 2011. He is known as having a little bit of a hawkish stance, which I was kind of surprised to see in the nominee here. And he's going to be appointed. So, I mean, that's kind of his background. He's an American financier and a bank executive as well. And during the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, he acted as the central bank's primary liaison to Wall Street and served as a representative to the Group of 20 and the board's emissary to the emerging and advanced economies in Asia. So he's got a lot of things on his resume here. What do you think about this? I'm a little surprised, given that it's a hawkish point of view that is that Kevin Warsh has, considering what the president said he wants to do with the Fed.
Byron, you go first because you've always got more opinions on this.
Yeah, I'm interested, Tom. I know you're going to share some of Logan Mohtashami's thoughts. I haven't dug into Logan's thoughts outside of a couple of tweets, but I definitely have, kind of already put together my own thought process around this. So he's got a ton of experience, as you mentioned. He's a Stanford, Harvard guy, Harvard, Stanford, big academic. At 35 years old, 20 years ago, he was the youngest member of the FOMC, the youngest Fed governor ever at that time. So he's got a ton of experience. He served on the FOMC from 2006 to 2011. Obviously, that's in the heart of the GFC. So very difficult time. As you mentioned, he's always historically been very hawkish on lowering rates. He fears inflation. We have a guy right now, Jerome Powell, who's scared to death of inflation. And so there's some alignment there. Where there's massive misalignment, if you just look back on Kevin Warsh's statements, not over the past 20, and that's where a lot of this hawkish commentary is coming from. But if you look at the comments he's made over the past 6 months, there's two big misalignments with where the FOMC is right now and where he'll head the committee if his appointment is put through by Congress, which remains to be seen because there's members of Congress on both sides, both left and right, that have said they are not going to push him through unless that DOJ investigation against Jerome Powell is dropped, which is highly, political investigation. Basically, Congress is saying, hey, the Trump administration is going after Jerome Powell, even though they say they're not. But putting that aside, if he gets put through, there are two major points of diversion. 6 months ago, Kevin Warsh said that this FOMC, this regime led by Jerome Powell, has waited too long to lower rates. Okay, they had 3 consecutive rate cuts. Obviously, this week they met again and they stopped that rate cutting cycle. I agree with Kevin Warsh. They've waited too long on cutting rates. If you look at real inflation, if you pull out owner's equivalent rent, we're already there. If you look at average annualized inflation since 1872, it's 2.7%, which is exactly where we are today. But we want to get to this made-up phony number of 2% that some bozo in New Zealand, what economy does New Zealand have, by the way? We're going to listen to them on this number of inflation back in the 80s. It's totally dumb. We're already where we should be, especially when you consider how GDP is ripping. So he says they've waited too long, which is an indication that, okay, long-term, based on his long-term history, he's not going to be somebody that just keeps cutting to cut. He's going to cut in the beginning. It gives stability to the markets like this, that he's going to be independent. He's not going to be a Trump puppet, which is surprising because I think Scott Bessent got in Trump's ear and said, hey, if you pick a puppet, the market's going to go crazy. They're not going to like that. You got to take somebody who's going to have some independence. So he believes they've waited too long to cut, which means if he gets in for that June meeting, you could see a cut in June. Second thing he said, which is going to create friction in the FOMC. I know you mentioned Logan thinks we're going to have a unified Fed. I think that's going to be hard early on. 6 months ago, he said that this regime, led by Jerome Powell, does not appear to know what they are doing. Now, I agree with those comments. They've consistently appeared to be flustered. Jerome Powell has consistently appeared to not know what the heck is going on. He continuously moves the goalposts. He has pathetic answers. He gets tripped up by the presser. He called inflation transitory back in 22. He convinced Congress to print all that money. He's been consistently inconsistent. Now, Jerome Powell might be on the committee. So Kevin Warsh is going to come in and lead. Jerome Powell might be one of those 12 votes sitting there. He's still going to have influence. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a unified Fed. 6 months ago, Kevin Warsh said that this committee, which I agree with, doesn't appear to know what they're doing. They don't have it put together. So I don't think you're going to have a unified Fed if he gets in. I still think he's the long-term guy. So he'll probably have just enough influence. But I think you'll have the widest dissent in the June on votes. They usually like to have a 12-0. They had a 10-2 this past week. I mean, it could be like an 8-4 or something, some kind of scenario like that if Jerome Powell is still sitting in the room and has influence. And so I think those are the 2 big things to keep the eye on. But the markets seem to like this move. There's no big wild swings, and that's what you're looking for, stabilization.
So my question for you, like with that take in mind, is it that the market cares more about who Kevin is or about whether they think he's going to be predictable long-term?
Predictable long-term. Yeah, they don't care like I do that he went Stanford, Harvard, Harvard, Stanford. They like the predictability.
So go ahead.
I mean, I like predictability too. I think that's good for just business in general. Logan Mohtashami, so he spoke and did a podcast for Housing Wire last night before the announcement came in. So this was I think he said he recorded it at like 10:30 at night. And he talked about the Fed meeting. And Byron, you hit on a really great point there about the dissent among the Fed, because they like to be unified in how they're voting. So it instills confidence. At least that's the thought. I'm a big believer in conflict and disagreement gets you a better result, but we can talk about that another time. And what he said was that he predicts a unified Fed depending on, down the line, because the 2 people who dissented, Mirren and Waller, well, they were kind of auditioning for the Fed chair. And part of those voting that these dissenting votes they've had at the last few meetings have been to maybe try to get the job of being the Fed chair. And now that Warsh is in, Warsh wasn't even mentioned in this podcast. It was like a 15-minute pod. And now that he's in, and you saw the other governor, Susan, I can't, her last name's escaping me right now. She was one of the people that dissent. She actually voted with the body at this meeting, that he's predicting we're going to see a more unified Fed now that there's stability with a new person running the Fed, that Jerome Powell's going to be out. And what he said was, best case, we're getting 2 rate cuts this year. And if that happens, that puts us finally into like the neutral zone So that's where he sees maybe the Fed being unified, because it's really all about the labor market for them. And because the labor market isn't breaking, they're not going to be making a lot of decisions. So I do agree. I think it's been too long to cut, but it sounds like they're going to still have a conservative approach here and a hawkish approach, to making future rate cuts through the rest of the cycle in 2026.
It'll be interesting. Do you think it actually goes through?
The nominee?
Yeah. Do you think it gets approved?
I do think, I mean,
yeah.
Who knows? I mean, Congress says things all the time. They're not going to push somebody through unless this deal. I think they got to drop that DOJ investigation on Jerome Powell. It is on the face what appears to be a very political move. I don't understand it from the Trump administration if they're behind it, which I think is safe to say that they are. It's like you're pressuring him to do what? You're just pressuring him to stick around longer. So doesn't seem like a great play. I mean, you're investigating him for misuse of funds on the Fed buildings, going over budget. It's I don't want him to go over budget either, but we got to stop with all these different unnecessary investigations that just kind of slow the process down. So ultimately, they probably drop it. He probably gets through. He's probably there in June. Polymarket has a better than 50% chance that there's either 25 or a 50 basis point cut. 50 basis point cut pop today on Polymarket.
Oh, I didn't see that yet.
I think we got to get 2 cuts in as quickly as we can because we're behind. We should be in a neutral position now. Like Tom said, we're going to, 2 cuts puts us in a neutral position. We should be there now. Atlanta Fed is reporting that GDP in the fourth quarter is coming in at 5.4%. GDP in the third quarter, Jerome Powell said during the presser, was at 4.4%. GDP is ripping, and this is without all the government hiring that we saw because it stopped this past 12 months. GDP is ripping. That has a lot to do, whether people want to admit it or not, has a lot to do with the renegotiations of how trade works globally. Tariffs did not destroy the economy. They did quite the opposite. They're finally chunking down the deficit for the first time in years because of those things. I always said was firm on this for a year. I was right on this. It's a negotiating position. I never really imagined that it would impact the overall economy as much as it has in terms of GDP growth. Inflation is where right now, where our average annualized number since 1872 has been. Employment seems to have stabilized. Some of the fears from the fourth quarter, that has not broken. And so, I think we should be at a neutral point like yesterday, which is why the Fed waited too long and they're a little bit behind. And so, once we get to that neutral position, I think what Kevin Warsh is saying is he's going to be the kind of guy that is hesitant to just, stimulate because the president wants stimulation. He's going to be a hold the line kind of guy based on his history, but he believes we're behind. We got to get to that neutral state given those other factors. And I think that'd be good for the economy. It'd be good for overall affordability, which is going to take time, but there are small little stepping stones of starting to head in the right direction. This would be, a big move in that direction as well.
So do you guys like the pick?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he kind of comes out of, I like that he's got a lot of experience. I mean, having that time period from 2006 to 2011, even if he made a lot of mistakes back, or even, he was one of the more hawkish people during that. Imagine being hawkish during the great financial crisis on getting rates down. Like, he was hawkish then. And so I don't like that as his natural instinct to be hawkish at times when you shouldn't be hawkish. But that was 20 years ago. He was the youngest Fed governor. What I like is he wants a smaller Fed balance sheet. I like that. And, it sounds like he's going to protect the independents. So those are good things. The market long-term respects this decision much more than some of the other ones. And if we get cuts immediately out of the gates this year, get back to neutral, then I think for the first year, you got to see, obviously he's got a 4-year appointment, but for the first year, we should be heading in the right direction. I'm glad it's over with. It's been kind of like hanging over the committee now for months, and now there is a announcement and we can move on.
What about you,
Agree.
Lisa?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's too early to really have an opinion, and I think that there's a bunch that's going to shake out before anyone's really going to know which direction it's going to go and what the long-term impacts are going to be. So I'm reserving my judgment. You?
Yeah, I like the experience. I mean, being on the Fed during that time, we've heard this in real estate that, I mean, he obviously had some wartime service there. That was very volatile in like the 2008 to 2011 period. So I like that. Hopefully he can learn from that experience if mistakes were there, to your point, Byron. And you know, there's people that are giving support here that have come out and already spoken. So we'll see what happens. I mean, this is, nobody really knows. It's no different than any other appointment. I mean, it's going to be based on what actions he takes. So let's talk about this Fed meeting. The Fed met yesterday, as expected. They paused at 3.75% after 3 straight rate cuts. It was a 10-2 vote. We're in that 3.5 to 3.75% range, and it's less about the decision, more about the comments. So the 10-2 vote, again, they like these votes to be unanimous. We kind of hit on Mirren and Waller were the dissenting votes in favor of a 25 basis point cut. And, you know, the press conference, I don't think there was anything that really came out with his opening statements. I did find some interest in some of the questions here from Jerome Powell. The one that really jumped out at me was the first time housing and mortgage got mentioned. It was from Chris Rugeber. I might be getting this guy's name wrong, from the AP. And his question was to just quickly follow up on the job market. You mentioned last month that household survey might be distorted. You also mentioned the potential for overcounting jobs, which would suggest that we are still in a negative hiring pace. So do you see that drop in unemployment rate is solid, and what's the basis for saying things that have stabilized? So I think that's a really good question, because we see these jobs numbers, they've gotten revised dramatically the last 2 months of August. Not August, this is, I don't know how to pronounce plural August. It's a weird thing.
I heard of August.
Yeah, the past 2 months of August. And Powell said it was really 2 questions. One, they're getting through the distortions in data from the shutdown. They were big in November, smaller in December. So it's no longer material, which I don't believe, because they always make these giant adjustments. So I don't believe that. Then he said the reason why we changed the statement was simply it used to say that judges' downside risk to employment rose in recent months. We saw data coming in which suggests signs of stabilization. I wouldn't go too far with that. There are also some signs of continued cooling. So he's kind of like talking about both sides of his mouth here.
It does it all the time. I can't wait. I can't wait
it's
to
very
get rid of him.
frustrating, because I think this is something that has a real impact on what happens with rates and how the market's moved, or these job numbers. That I think that's one of the bigger things that actually impacts this than the Fed decisions. And then he said the outlook for the economic activity has improved, clearly improved since the last meeting. And you're talking about GDP, Byron. I think that's what he's referencing there, and that should matter for labor demand and for employment. So, I mean, it's just like the jobs numbers, I just don't believe them. And I think this is a great question.
He's so politically motivated, Jerome Powell. He called economic growth solid. 4.4 and 5.4% is ripping. It's shredding is what it's doing. It's not solid. It's outstandingly surprising is what it is. But he tries to downplay anything to the positive, and he tries to pour lighter fluid on anything to the negative. And so it'll be good for all markets, investors, a greater economy, for him to get out of these pressers. He's done it for a long time. He's having a hard time navigating them. You know, I agree with what Kevin Warsh said 6 months ago. It appears that he doesn't know what he's doing. He keeps moving the goalposts. He talks out of both sides of his mouth. One thing I think about when I think about the future of these pressers with a guy like Kevin Warsh, he is somebody who appears to be forward-thinking. He's pro-Bitcoin. He doesn't think Bitcoin should replace the dollar, but it appears that he's pro more real-time data as well. And, you know, I think that's where Powell's so hung up on some of these old measurements that we use today. And, you know, maybe he's just following legacy and he thinks that's what he's supposed to do as the Fed chairperson. But I think a lot of the data that they're hanging their hat on, is systems that we used in the 80s and 90s. And I don't know too many well-running businesses today that are reliant fully on only 1980s and 1990s systems and processes. So, but jobs overall, I mean, you look at weekly unemployment, that's the one thing that's going to get Jerome Powell to act before his appointment runs out, is going to be jobs weakening. And it doesn't appear 1 month into 2026 that we're seeing, a significant move on weakening jobs.
Do you think the numbers get adjusted though?
I mean, they could, but I haven't seen you haven't seen outside of, Amazon, which you knew that Amazon, I think it was UPS or whatever that deal was, at 30,000 jobs.
Right.
I haven't seen many companies laying off, not major companies at big sizes. That's like the only one, and that was already kind of baked into the cake. So, it could get adjusted. It could be a little bit weaker than it is right now, but it doesn't appears to be a holding pattern of, I'll use Jerome Powell's word, pretty solid job market.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know.
Everybody wants to be making more money, because
and doing less work, because that's what I see in the job market right now.
Everybody wants to be making more money because of the new price levels, but if you were one of those people who was cheering on printing all that money, that last $2.3 trillion in 2022 when we knew COVID was over, well, so sad, but we have new price levels. You cheered it on because you thought, it was the time to print money. It wasn't the time to print money. And now we have new price levels, and wages there has to be time to catch up. Wages are going up. They've gone up in every category, this past year. It's the 25th percentile, the 75th percentile, the median, all demographics. Wages are growing. The economy is growing. It's going to take time to catch up. And I think there's a lot of jobs that, listen, AI is going to create as many jobs as it's going to replace. I know that can be a divisive topic, but I don't know. I'd hire 5 people tomorrow if they had the AI skill set that we're looking for. Bobby's like shaking his head. Yeah. I mean, we've had an ad running now for how long? Months on a very, it's a specific position. A problem with where we're at today in the job market is mommies and daddies have convinced their children to go take out debt to go to our great university so that they can put a bumper sticker, so they can put the Harvard, Stanford bumper sticker, the whatever bumper sticker on the back of their car. And their kid gets out, and now their kid's 22, 24, 26 years old with all this debt, and at that time, now they've grown up a little bit. They're like, I want to buy a house, but I never will be able to because I've got $300,000 in debt. And then everybody's blaming, the job market. No, you didn't get the skill set the last 4 years of where the market is today. Market today needs electricians. The market today needs AI experts. And you didn't learn either of those two things in college. So we have a fundamental issue with what we're telling young people to spend their time and their money on. And that's showing up in a job market that has 7 million openings versus 7 million looking for a job. Because there's a mismatch.
I think it's just to that point. I think it's just too new. I don't think that the college programs have kept up with it. It's not aged enough for those.
No, because the college
programs to be really finessed out and developed yet. I think it's
because they operate like the Fed. They're rolling out 1980s and 1990 mentality curriculums, and they've been inundated by one way of thinking. And listen, Lisa, just because you got children in college doesn't mean you need to defend the system. Your children are lucky enough where they're not going to have debt. Don't defend a system that is broken, corrupt,
I'm not
putting people
defending the
into
system, and I'm the first one that says that I don't believe that all children should go to college. I'm the first one that says that. However, I think that AI is moving so rapidly that the ability to develop curriculum to deliver to these students around AI itself, like think about everything that we do just over the past 6 months. It's changed so much just in 6 months that by the time a curriculum is developed and rolled out to kids even 6 months later, it's no longer relevant. And I don't think it's a fail of the educational system. I think it's just that in this one particular niche, and now don't get me wrong, again, I will never defend the college system in the United States. I believe solidly that it's broken on a bunch of different levels. But I think we do have to be realistic here that this part of society, this industry by itself is evolving so rapidly that I think it would be almost impossible to have a program designed to keep up with how quickly the industry is evolving.
See, I'm going to disagree there, Lisa. They don't have the right instructors in place to teach it because the experts aren't college professors. The experts in this, like they're not, they don't want to go anywhere near college. Like, I mean, you have these professors that, you know, it's those who can do, those who can't teach. You've heard this term before. These people aren't out there studying AI. They're collecting their tenure check. Give me a break.
Where's that? I put it on
yes
Instagram
and no.
stories.
There's just not, it's such a new industry in the way that it's evolving that if there's those that are developing, and there's just not enough of them out there yet to be able to teach. I don't know. I understand what you're saying. And like I said, but I don't think that comes down to a systemic issue with the college system in the United States. I
do. I mean, let me give you an example from 20 years ago. This is classic, where there's this entrepreneurship contest. You had to come up with a business and pitch it. You know what one of the people came up with at the school I attended, Syracuse University? Overnight mail. Oh, this is a horrible idea, Lisa. This is never going to work. You know what company they found it? FedEx. So clearly there are times when this is demonstrated over and over again that the colleges they operate from such an ivory tower. And to me, you got to get in the trenches and work. And
you should have been hanging out. You should have been hanging out with them.
Way before I went there, obviously.
Oh,
but the point is though that, you know, that's the people you want to bring into your university to make it actually having something appealing in a program. And they're just, they don't think that way. It's about protecting what they have to get paid. We can go on for this forever. I don't think
we could go on forever and ever. I posted to Instagram stories. I shared it in our group chat, that Gary Vee post of the clean sneaker talking about it. And then
I reshared that too.
The dirty sneaker doing it. And when I reshared it to my Instagram story, I put the headline, "There's so many talkers in real estate." Well, there's so many talkers, obviously, in college. You could relate this to a lot of different things. You've got professors who are pontificators. They're talkers. They've got the clean sneaker. They've never gone out. And for the most part, at scale, created a business, gotten into the trenches. And this is something that's happening in real estate, like at scale. When you look at prop tech and you look at even kind of the coaching sector, which is very wide. A lot of coaches, obviously, that we respect, but just as an entire sector in real estate, prop tech, coaching, the influence now, the decision makers are often a lot of clean-shoed people who have not been in the trenches. And a lot of these people say how easy it would be for them to start a team in a particular location, and how fast of a track record of success that they would have. It's very hard to pontificate your way to success in real estate. We know that from the last 3-4 years. Real estate agents have gone through the toughest market. I think this is a tougher market even than the recovery, which, obviously we have experience in that as well. This has been a very challenging market, very volatile market. And so there's a lot of talkers who say that they can do what all the listeners do every single day. And then there's those of us that are, in the trenches working this business and trying to figure it out and adapting. And I want to give a shout out to all the knowledge brokers out there who are doing it every single day.
I absolutely agree with that, actually. That's one area where I will agree with you, Byron.
Well, you agree
and to
with
be clear,
most of the things I say.
The guy who founded FedEx did not go to Syracuse. It was in a competition like that we had to run, just so before I get roasted here. But so I agree, Byron. I think you got to get in the trenches. I mean, it's such a problem with this business, and mean, you'll see coaches like we had a coach at a local brokerage pick up my cousin who's an agent in an Uber. Okay, like he's the productivity coach for this company. And like, man, you must be doing really well if this is how you're making money. And then you look at his sales track record and it's single digits over the past couple of years. So tons of examples there. Let's talk about this Rocket lawsuit. This is interesting.
A fun one. Yeah.
Rocket companies, they got slapped with this feels like weeks ago. This was Monday, by the way, or Tuesday, whatever the 26th was. I guess that was Monday. And they face a class action lawsuit alleging it steered home buyers to its mortgage products, violating RESPA, very similar to the Zillow lawsuit. It was Monday. And this is the same company, the same law firm, Hagens Berman, that are representing the plaintiffs, a consumer protection law firm, and they're involved with similar litigation against Zillow and NAR. And if you look at the articles that were here, there was some serious allegations. This is all alleged, to be very clear. And one of the things that really jumped out at me is that Rocket charges these third-party agents a higher referral fee if these agents do not steer their clients to Rocket Mortgage, according to the complaint. That is some serious stuff. And consumers seem to be numb to this now. I think there's so many of these lawsuits that they're coming out constantly. Zillow got slapped with something similar we talked about on the pod. I mean, this is a big deal, I think. And if that's actually true, I think Rocket's got a real problem. If the referral fee tied to the mortgage servicing is going up or down, I mean, that's saying, hey, we'll pay you more or you'll make more money if you go to our mortgage company. That's bad news for everybody involved.
I think one of the differences, though, and where I think we have to kind of watch this, is that the Zillow one was where the consumer approached Zillow to connect with an agent, and then the agent pushed back to ZHL. This one actually appears to be slightly different in that the consumer originated with Rocket and inquired about a pre-approval, and then the pre-approved buyer was sent to the agent. And
correct.
So there's a little bit of a difference. And I think one of the things that I find interesting in this is that there are several other loan companies that operate in the same model. And so it'll be interesting to see if those now follow suit. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking Veterans United, right? And one of the allegations in this was that the stipulation not only was about the referral fee, but that if the agent introduced the consumer to a different lender, that they could lose their ability to maintain the contract, right? So super interesting to think about. We've done Veterans United. I don't know if either of you guys have ever done. Okay. And so those consumers come over pre-approved with a Veterans United pre-approval. And the premise there is that you keep the consumer with their Veterans United pre-approval. I think, historically, what I've heard of with agents who kind of use that program was that they were asked to notify Veterans United if they heard that the consumer was shopping around, so that the VULO could reach back out and reconnect with the consumer before they totally moved the loan. The other thing that's maybe a little bit different is that there is a carve out in RESPA under the safe harbor for affiliated businesses. And so I think one of the things that's going to be really critical in all of these claims that come up, whether it's Zillow, and I don't think Zillow had it, I don't know about Rocket, and we'll see with some of the others, is that under the safe harbor, a person may refer consumers to an affiliated company and legally receive profit distributions from the affiliate, provided that, one, a disclosure concerning the affiliation is provided to the consumer. Two, the consumer is not required to use the affiliated entity. And three, the only payments made under the arrangement are returns on ownership interest or other permissible payments. So super kind of fascinating when you think about it on both sides, right? Is it with the pre-approved buyer going to the real estate agent from, say, Rocket to the agent, what is the RESPA violation? Is it actually about the loan, or is it about the real estate agent services? Like, just think about that, right? Because the buyer was already pre-approved and was being referred to a real estate company, which is different than the Zillow one, where the buyer was not pre-approved.
Yeah.
And
Relo companies do the same thing. They say, "Hey, you got to."
Right.
I mean, hey, you got to use our people, and we're going to charge you a fee. That's been going on for decades. So you're right about that.
Yeah. So it's just interesting. So I think while similar on the surface in a lot of ways, and when I first read it, my gut reaction was the same, which is, this is big. I think when you really start to kind of dig in and understand it, I think that there's some pretty big differences, and it'll be interesting to see if those differences shake out in a different way for what it means. All that being said, I think that these relationships are in trouble. I suspect that what kind of comes out of it is similar to how NAR settled things and made some changes in that respect. I don't think they go to trial. I think there's some sort of settlement that changes how these things operate on a move forward.
Byron, before you jump in, the Rocket spokesperson agrees with Lisa's take. They said the claims in this case are a complete retread of the case that the CFPB filed and was quickly dismissed. Rocket's proud to help homeowners navigate complex real estate partnerships. We're confident that we will be vindicated. So, I mean, they're talking about the same thing, and then they said they categorically disagree. So, you know, and it's like a double jeopardy sort of thing. I mean, you can't keep trying these cases here and having different results.
Well, but I think the difference, it's not being retried because this is civil.
It was a retread of the case,
right.
not retried, a retread of the case.
Well, right, but so double jeopardy doesn't really
I agree. I know it doesn't apply, but it's the same concept is my point.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Like, thinking about that affiliated business disclosure and, you know, whether that exists. I don't know that it exists from the Rocket going to the agent. I'd be, based on what the terms are of the AFBA disclosure, I'm 90% sure Zillow's not doing it. So it says it must be on a separate sheet of paper and be provided either with the GFE or no later than the time of each referral. So
that's exactly what we do with our title company here. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a separate piece of paper. It has all the estimates of the cost listed on there. I mean, that's how to do this.
Right. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, my initial gut was it's really big, but as the more I read into it, the less big it felt to me. I don't know if you guys kind of had that same gut reaction and then longer term take on it once you really dug into it.
And these companies are so big. Rocket, Redfin, obviously one company, Zillow. And, you know, you can't just claim because you emotionally don't like these companies that they're dumb.
Right.
They're not dumb. They're not stupid. And so as I see these, well, there's two things that are happening. One, every single lawsuit in real estate is going to be attempted. And you'll see as time goes on more
I agree with that.
More of the pushback that, hey, this is a retread. You can't keep suing somebody for the same thing. You're going to see, because these attorneys are going to squeeze every bit of juice out of this, and then they'll move on to something else. They'll move on trying to tear apart some other industry. That's what these people do. So you're going to see that over time. The second thing is I do have this belief that Rocket, Zillow, whoever knows something that the rest of us don't about RESPA, that the rules are about to change dramatically as it relates to RESPA, and they're going to change under this administration. And, you know, why would they be this aggressive? Why would there be, you know, obviously consolidation has stopped, you know, M&A has stopped, and now consolidation has picked back, M&A has picked back up under this administration. That's something that is across all industries. But why is there this just flippant view of these RESPA unless you know there's going to be changes, or unless you believe these lawsuits and settlements are going to influence change positively in your direction? So yeah, I think they're going to end up paying a big settlement. I think everybody's going to pay a bunch of money. And then they're going to get rules that they're good with moving forward as it relates to RESPA that favor them, that favor big companies.
Yes, I agree with some of that. I think that there will be changes that favor the big company. I don't know that they know something, but I believe that my take is that they are doing this to create the change and make the change palatable as opposed to just pushing forward.
We had Luke
They could be
on
lobbying right now for all we know. I mean, that's that these companies do this stuff all the time.
There's so much stuff going on behind the scenes. When Luke was on, Lisa, when you missed, we were talking about that Washington State bill that was proposed to basically ban exclusive listings, right? And Luke's like, yeah, I mean, Zillow's located in Washington and they're against exclusive listings. And all of a sudden the bill pops up there and maybe becomes precedent for the rest of the country if it gains momentum, if it gets passed and gains momentum. And you're in a midterm election year. You have both sides of the aisle. This isn't a political thing. Both sides of the aisle want to brand themselves as being good for affordability. Banning exclusive networks where only some win and some don't get access to seems to benefit more of buyer affordability than not. And so I think there's a ton of behind. I don't think they're just dealing in the courtrooms. I don't think that's their only play. Yeah, they're dealing with all avenues available to them, all resources available to them. I thought Rocket, I said this in December, I thought Rocket was in a unique position. You get rid of Glenn Kelman. That's a win. I think the CEO of Rocket is a very, very competent. He's very well spoken, seems to be an operator. Now obviously they get hit with this. So, they're all dealing with it. It's not just one company. And if there's a big company out there that's not dealing with it today, they may be very soon. But
yeah, I think that there's the two big ones that come to mind that could still face it. Loan Depot, they had, what was their referral program? What was that called?
Man, everybody's catching strays from Lisa. Veterans United, Loan Depot.
No,
there was a guy, Jason Mitchell. He's out of Arizona. He was on the Housing Wire podcast, and he basically went on and said the same thing you're talking about, that these lenders originated these loans, and we have partners with all these people. You go on his website. Here's the list of this guy's corporate partners. Rocket.
He just announced the big partnership publicly, Jason Mitchell.
Yeah. New American Funding, Loan Depot.
Mellow Home. Cooper. Sorry, that was the Loan Depot one. Mellow Home.
Okay. Home Advantage, AmeriSave Realty, Zillow, obviously, Veterans United, Home Story. So he's partnered with all these people. And I mean, that's, and there's a lot more. So, I mean, that's, it's an interesting business model, obviously. And there's a lot of these out there. These are all the companies we just talked about. And then some.
Yeah. There's going to be a re-underwriting of what RESPA means moving forward. And my gut tells me it's going to favor big companies, and you're going to see, I've been saying this, we've all been saying this for a long time, but you're going to see it both on the real estate and on the lending side. You're going to see more movement into big companies. So if you don't like big companies, too bad.
Good luck. Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect segue into the last.
Speaking of big companies,
the last topic.
Wow, that was Lisa, you got to stop telling everyone it's a segue. That's the whole purpose of a segue. You just kind of keep talking about it.
Wow, roast Tom. That seemed aggressive towards Lisa to me. That seemed like
I can't hear you from your.
Like he was attacking her personally.
If I'm attacking Lisa personally, everyone's going to know. I'm very clear with that.
That seemed very aggressive to me.
Just wait one day, buddy. So CoStar, big companies. CoStar, just taking it on the chin here. That there's a company called Third Point. They're a New York City hedge fund, and we know that CoStar put billions of dollars into Homes.com. The stock's now down 27% 5 years later, and there is a sharply worded letter from activist investor Daniel Loeb of Third Point, and CoStar responded. And basically, the center of the criticism from Third Point is how much capital CoStar poured into residential real estate and how little revenue it produced. to frame the investment, he pointed out total spending and revenue, $5 billion invested across CoStar's residential real estate segment over 5 years, $3 billion tied specifically to U.S. residential marketplace efforts, $60 million in revenue in 2024.
Wait, and say that again, because when I first read it, I was like, wait, those numbers math, and I missed that it was an M versus a B. So you have to really emphasize that.
$5 billion across all residential platforms. $3 billion specifically, so 3 of the 5. That would be 3 of 5 billion with a B for Byron, tied specifically to U.S. residential marketplace efforts. $60 million in revenue in 2024, $80 million expected in 2025. So I'm going to bust out my calculator here for everybody. So you take the 3. Let's just take the U.S. right. Forget the other $2 billion. Who the hell knows where that went? So you got $3 billion
basically
minus
$1 billion
$140 million. That's a $2.86 billion loss in the U.S. Whew. And so then CoStar responded, and Andy Florance. This was the the counterpunch was they pushed back hard on the idea that the board had been complacent. They pointed out several changes that they made. I don't know how you defend that kind of loss. I mean, that's a tough one. So what do you two think about this?
Well, so my first thing is looking at it, and so stopping to think about like why are they losing? And so here's my take. I talk about this often, and Byron, it'll probably resonate with you from the marketing side, but when you're for everyone, you're for no one, right? And one of the big things that they point out is that CoStar is so profitable on the commercial side. And I think when you really dig into everything that's shaking out here, they're saying that the commercial side of things, LoopNet and all of that, is still highly profitable for them. And so it's just interesting to think about, like, what can we learn as agents from this, right? And
great point.
Is there something to be said for really sticking in a niche? And should they have stuck with the commercial side of it and resisted the urge to go residential? Like, is that the downfall?
They have historically dominated commercial, obviously.
Right. That's my point.
And so at some point when you're looking for growth for shareholders, there wasn't any more growth in commercial, in apartments. The only thing left, the only path to go was residential. So I don't discredit them for going after residential. They're a big enough company. They're, at the time that they did this, they were 3x the market cap of a Zillow. They had the resources and the capabilities to go after it. I just think they made a lot of mistakes in how they approached the residential market. So I don't blame them for going after it. I think they should have, as a growth, as a next step. I mean, this is look CoStar up. What is this? A 30-year company, 25-year-old company? They were at the stage of the company where they could go after residential, where the analogy
in 1987. So
87. So even more. So where the analogy though kind of works is like that second-year agent who has sold 7 residential homes and is like, "Hey Tom, I want to start doing commercial." Dude, you haven't figured out res. Like, are you giving up on residential and switching to commercial? As a day-to-day practice of business, they're 2 totally different things. And you don't have the leverage points, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the scale as a solo operator to be good at those 2 things. As a big, large cap, $30+ billion company, you have the scale to go put out a residential division. Agents trying to do a little bit of everything, like Lisa, your point, being for everybody. Oh, I do commercial, I do residential, I do high rise, I do rentals, I do Airbnb. You're going to be average at best or below average at all of those things across the board. So I agree with that, but I do think CoStar could have pulled it off. I think they just spent to spend. They said, 20 years ago, Zillow spent on Google and they got a lot of impressions and they just pushed traffic and people, then, landed on Zillow.com and they ended up being able to monetize that traffic. The problem that Everybody discounts. CoStar discounted it. All these brokers discount it. Agents discount it to this day. Is that, yes, that's how Zillow got traffic flowing in the beginning. But over that 20 years, they built something that is indestructible in the eyes of the consumer.
But what Byron's talking about here, I think this is actually really, really great. And Lisa, you mentioned it. The classic mistake agents make. And I don't even think it's the going to hey, you're back. All right.
I'm back. So I'll wrap up here because I think we got a little bit of wonky internet there. I don't know if you guys heard my last point, but over the 20 years, Zillow built something that's indestructible brand. Homes discounted how powerful that brand is. And you're just not going to spend your way to having enough impressions to break through to that. You had to come at it a different approach. They didn't bring enough people in that understood residential inside and out. And so I think the critiques of, the largest shareholder, this third point group, the criticism from this shareholder are valuable. And they want to see returns. Now, they didn't bring in, I think to their point, one of the points they made, they didn't bring the right operators in. I mean, I know some of the deals that Homes.com made with some scam media companies in real estate that are after impressions, and they literally lit those dollars on fire. They didn't get aligned with going back to the shoe analogy. People in the trenches who understood how this was going to work, and obviously the stock price is paying for it. The whole critique on third point about how much Andy Florance makes.
That's what I was just going to ask.
I think that's ridiculous. Andy Florance started this company. He's the founder. He's grown this thing to a 30-something billion dollar company. And I have no problem with what he's earning at all.
Okay, I disagree, actually. Like, look at what he was making. And, he was making, in 2024, $37 million in compensation, even though performance was lagging and the stock was down.
Yeah.
Can you really say that he should have earned $37 million? Not when you have investors at that magnitude. Absolutely not. Yeah. He's got accountability. And super fun because it's one of the things that the three of us talk about in our text group, right? Is one of the biggest things that really works in the staff side of things in our businesses is making sure that there's true accountability. But I think accountability has to start at the top. And if you've taken on investments with the promise of delivering results and you haven't done that, isn't the accountability that you give up some of your compensation? And let's be real, he could still be living fat on $10 million a year and giving back $27 million.
I don't know why you got your hands in his pockets, Lisa.
I tend to agree with Byron. It's a founder.
That's a deal the board agreed to.
Yeah, when you found the company, it's much different. Now, look, none of us have corporate structure. I mean, we have org charts and that sort of stuff. It is a lot different when you take other people's money.
When you take other people's money, you owe accountability.
But they agreed to it. I mean, we're in this time now
package
where people sign contracts and say, I changed my mind about it. I don't like it. So where I side with Byron here, if it's agreed to and it's signed, that's the deal.
I think on a move forward basis, he's going to have pressure from investors he's going to have to perform, but he has a track record of performance at CoStar.
We're in a business full of contracts, and this concept that the contract doesn't mean anything. That's where I disagree, Lisa. I mean, we sign things, we agree to them. You can't just change your mind. And Byron, you had a great point about the mistake here. I actually think our listeners need to pay attention to this. I'm going to give a different example where you talked about I'm for everybody. I do commercial. I do this. I do that. Forget that. Once you do one thing that's good and you're good at it, don't stop doing it for something that is unproven. I mean, now CoStar didn't make that mistake here, but a lot of agents do, Lisa. You've seen this. They do really well at one lead source, really well at one lead pillar, and they say, I'm not doing this anymore, instead of trying to do both at the same time. And that's how people get pushed out of this business. So I'd be very careful going into an unproven territory in an arena where you don't have documented results. If you're good at one thing, don't just stop doing that. You got to do them both. That's why CoStar is still standing. They didn't give up on the commercial side.
Yeah, I don't know. I still solidly stand by my disagreement. Yes, a contract is a contract. However, I think leadership means standing by when things aren't going the right way.
Well, they're not going out of business. I mean, you make it sound like they're about to.
That's my point. They were able to take this risk on because they kept their core business policy in place. The mistake agents make is, hey, I'm really good at working with buyers, so I'm not going to work with buyers anymore. I'm going to try to become a listing agent in the most expensive marketplace that I can find, and then they get their ass kicked instead of trying to maintain both at the same time and counterbalance everything or have some sort of harmony. So CoStar's still standing. Andy Florance isn't getting thrown out, and he's still getting his comp package because he kept the commercial business going. That's the lesson here.
Yeah, maybe.
And and I mean, CoStar's their numbers are wild of what the revenue that they're going to bring in here over the next year on projections and what they brought in.
They still got a $26 billion market cap. I think they're doing okay.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, but so what do you think happens with Homes.com a year from now? What does it look like? What's shaking out there?
I mean, they're going to continue. They've got to get somebody in there to operate this thing that is going to be able to, obviously show that you have a sticky lead to the operators across the country, which in terms of online lead generation is Teams. How they get that traffic to stick is a really difficult uphill battle. And, even think about it. You get an ad as a consumer, Homes.com. You land on Homes.com. You're not familiar with it. You've seen some commercials, but you want to double check it. You have kind of a second guess. So then you go over to whatever your number one brand of choice is, Realtor.com or Zillow.com. And you bounce out and you double check it. So to get people to stick in there, I think is the very difficult part of this equation. I don't think you can do it from the agents thing. I don't think just partnering with teams and trying to get them to, backfill traffic, that's not going to work. So how do you get the traffic to stick so then you can partner with teams who can make the largest investment to get those revenues going in the right direction?
They need something unique.
They do need something unique.
Right? Like think about Zillow had the Zestimate. That was their thing that was super unique, right? And Realtor.com has some of the best analytics about properties or places or, whatever. Like
they kind of had first mover advantage too, to some degree.
Right. And Homes,
they've got a better brand, Realtor.com. I mean, everyone that's been around for as long as I've been in business.
Yeah, but you don't go to Homes.com. There's no information on there that's super that you can't find anywhere else. They don't have anything that is unique and special.
The real winners are here. The SNL actors who cashed in and got all that money. Yeah. That's a genius move for them. I mean, congratulations.
They made the mistake that agents historically make, which is their promotion was, I did X in volume, I did X in sales, and that was all their promotion. Their promotion was, we did this in monthly visitors to Homes.com. Like, why would a consumer care, to Lisa's point about not having anything unique, why would a consumer care how many impressions? Those are some of the commercials they were running, was how many impressions they got the last month.
Well, I get that, though, because
over there. That was more of them battling with Realtor and Zillow and trying to stick it to them. A consumer
not
doesn't care about
necessarily.
impressions.
Sellers do. Buyers don't. Sellers do. And if you think about how it tied into that marketing thing where they were sending those brochures to sellers to get them to boost their listing. So I can see why they did that. It was going towards listing traffic.
And everything is focused on listings. So I mean, that is their one unique thing. Your listing, your lead. But I just think that's a broken model. So I don't think that's a long-term win.
Well, and think about the response time from listing agents. I mean, some of these people can't even answer their phone for their clients, let alone
Lisa. What would you do?
Well, what would I do?
WWLD.
I would actually just move back. I don't think that there's a path for them to turn the residential side profitable. I think that they should almost look at selling it off and giving it to somebody who can. I think that their bread and butter, where they're really good, is commercial. And I think that they should stick with that and let the homes the homes portion of it go to somebody who has the ability to figure out what that unique thing is and how to monetize it.
If you think about it, they spent $5 billion trying to get Homes.com relevant, and Redfin sold for just over $1 billion.
I know.
And you could have just bought Redfin. The problem is
better investment buying Redfin's website, if you ask me.
The problem, and maybe why they didn't pull the trigger, because you don't think Redfin went to Homes and said, "Hey, we're about to be sold for 1.2 here to Rocket. You want to up the ante? You've already invested way more than this in residential." I think maybe the hesitancy at this point is they're not sure how they're going to monetize that type of traffic, because they're so hung up on your listing your lead, which is not the best monetization play by any means, that they're stuck. They don't know how they're going to monetize this in the American market. They know how they can monetize it in foreign markets, because listing agents basically have to pay for every listing to be placed, much like commercial here. But that's not the case in America on the residential side. And so why would you buy Redfin if you're not going to monetize the other side of the business? And they've been against doing that. So, remember they almost bought Realtor.com, and then that deal blew up. That would have been the best if they bought Realtor.com and stuck with the Realtor.com model, where you have that partnership between the top teams and, across America. If you have that partnership in line, that Realtor.com model, that could be a win. But you're really buying the brand and the traffic that already exists there, and you wouldn't have as much of a need for homes. So they probably should have done this through acquisition a long time ago. Now they're kind of stuck, and if they're going to make Homes.com work, they're gonna have to do it in a completely different way, and they're gonna have to get that next generation Gen Z, or they're gonna have to play the long game of getting them to buy in somehow. And maybe that's what they tried to do with some of that SNL stuff, but it just hasn't worked, and that generation isn't ready to buy a home.
Well, we know the average first-time home buyer's 38 years old. So that's a really good point. I mean, I can't even stay up for Saturday Night Live. I don't know about you two.
Well,
I can't stand the content on Saturday Night Live. So.
Well, that's also another problem. All right. All right, Byron, good look at your keynote here. I hope your finished basement gets cleaned up a little bit. That's a really nice set. Maybe you can bring that back to Florida. Should we have?
And I like your attire today. It's usually very
you do look
black.
very professional, yeah.
It's usually very what, Lisa?
Black.
Oh.
Book winners.
Oh, we got some book winners, guys.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we got 3 book winners here. I got them. Forgot about this. Robin Younger. Congrats. Thanks for the comment. The McKinney team and BAM superfan Jason Flory. I love Jason. He comes he shows up every time. So $100 million Hermosi book coming your way. Thanks for tuning in, and drop some more comments. Let us know if you thought my comment to Lisa was offensive when I whatever Byron was complaining about. So
there's no more book giveaways, though. We did it 3 weeks in a row. We are going to give away some books at the BAM Pro Bowl, which is Wednesday, bamprobowl.com. If you haven't grabbed your seat for that, we'll be doing some giveaways there. So make sure you're there.
See you next week.
See you guys. Have a good weekend.